Hello and welcome to Truth versus Hype. Just as prohibition takes wing across India, so is the prospect of multiple states waiving off farmers' loans. Uttar Pradesh has already done it, as we know, waiving off close to about 36,000 crores in farm loans. And now the pressure is on other states and their chief ministers as well. Now, no one would argue, least of all on this show, that rural distress is not real. We only need to replay these disturbing images of farmers from drought-hit Tamil Nadu who stripped naked in the blazing Delhi heat outside the Prime Minister's office earlier this week as part of their protests in Delhi demanding central assistance. But the question is that are farm loan waivers the answer, or is that an easy way out for politicians and policymakers to bypass tougher, more complex factors that create agricultural indebtedness? Now, for instance, a significant number of Indian farmers, over 35%, remain dependent solely on moneylenders, so will not be impacted by the farm waiver at all. Out of the remaining over 60%, remember, many also borrow from moneylenders, so they remain trapped in a cycle of debt. Moreover, as long as agriculture remains unviable, debt will continue to grow, as the union budget itself lists a number of reasons why farming is not remunerative. Let's just look at some of those pointers that are up on the screen. For example, heavy dependence on rainfall for irrigation, says the budget. Micro irrigation projects are unimplemented because of a high initial investment. The per hectare production of wheat, rice and pulses in India is below the world average, and the per capita availability of fresh water is dropping continuously. It's fallen 2/3 in the past 40 years, and this is in the budget, no less. Now, earlier this week when we debated this, I put this to Siddharth Nath Singh, who's the health minister of Uttar Pradesh and the spokesperson of the Uttar Pradesh government, to ask him that just going beyond farm loans, isn't it important for the state government to address these other fundamental areas of concern, low productivity, drop in water supply? Otherwise, doesn't that just make loan waivers a form of populism for political gain?
Well, Vasu, there's no elections coming around the corner. That's for next 5 years, or the earliest is 2019. So why talk about populism? The government has taken a conscious decision. You need to bring the 70% population in the mainstream. You can't leave them alone and under a debt. So the government steps in at that point of time. That's the duty of the government. But at the same time, I agree with you, you need to give a long-term solution. And the long-term solution, if the other governments haven't given, we will be given. And there are classic examples like Madhya Pradesh, which is an adjoining state, and the Bundelkhand area, where irrigation facilities have been brought in. The more productivity has been increased. So there are good examples which we will follow if our intention is okay.
Right. The other problem, of course, is that a very large percentage of farmers in UP, in fact, as we just saw all over India, about 40% in UP dependent on what are called non-institutional sources of loan, that is borrowing from money lenders, landlords and so on. So in a sense, this farm loan waiver doesn't really benefit them.
No, I disagree there because once the Jan Dhan Yojana was launched and the farmers, those who are extremely poor, they have also become, they also have an account. Now, all these schemes which the central government is going to, is giving, and also the state government will definitely benefit them directly. At the same time, they will be, because of the banking facility, they will be eligible for many other schemes which are in the pipeline. So what used to exist, I think the Prime Minister has put an end, and a lot of farmers and the poor people have come into the banking system.
But you know, these are recent figures. These are government figures that a significant number of people don't have access to loans.
Well, that's exactly, well, the central government is certainly also a very recent phenomena which has happened. So I think we shouldn't get confused on that. This, unless until the people don't come into the banking system, I do agree they will not be eligible for institutional financing. We all know that due to Jan Dhan scheme, a lot of people have come into the mainstream. I'm sure they will get all the benefit.
All right, Siddharth Nath Singh there, thanks very much indeed. So, of course, the government at the centre and the state will argue that they've gone beyond just loan waivers. But if you look at the track record of just this government, when it comes to agriculture, it remains uneven. Let's take the crucial issue of the minimum support price by which the government purchases wheat and rice from farmers. Now, the Prime Minister himself had said in 2014 that we will change the minimum support price. There will be a new formula that the entire cost of production and 50% profit will determine the price. This will not only help farmers, but this step will also not allow anyone to loot farmers. Now, let's look at the reality of what is actually happening on the ground. If we were to apply that 50% formula, then according to our own rough estimate of the prices of these cereals at which they're being produced in western Uttar Pradesh would come to 2,700 rupees for rice, while the actual current MSP is only 1,800 rupees. Similarly, for wheat, the cost of production plus the 50% would require the MSP to be around 2,700 rupees again, but the actual price is only 1,635 rupees. So, a big gap there between what was promised and what we're actually seeing on the ground. Let's take the other big area where farmers are vulnerable and which the government has made a priority, which is of course farm insurance. Now, a shockingly low percentage of Indian farmers are covered by insurance. In 2013, that figure was only 1.2 crores, which works out to roughly 20% farmers. Now, here the government has aggressively enrolled a large number of farmers, according to its own data, under this Prime Minister's farm insurance scheme, and that's now roughly doubled to about 3.5 crore farmers, but still that leaves out a large swath of farmers. About 60% are still not covered. There are problems which are factoring in this delay. One of them is that the premium under the new scheme is increased. Also, the compensation to farmers is being doled out in a slow and limited way. Let's lastly look at another area which has been a big area of thrust for the government when it comes to looking at factors beyond just loan write-offs, and that is soil health cards. Now, this has seen a rapid growth going back across not just this government but even previous ones. There's been, according to government data, a 441% increase in soil cards just in the last 8 years. But is that all enough to alleviate the reasons for rural distress? All of this suggests, in fact, that while farm loan waivers might be of help, the reasons for rural debt and distress are much more complex, as Sonal Matharu found when she travelled to western Uttar Pradesh.
Noorpur village in Ghaziabad, about 60 kilometers from Delhi. In this wheat growing belt, it is harvest season. The news of the loan waiver is greeted with caution.
किसान ये चाह रहे हैं कि सबको फायदा तब हो जब इनमें सब्सिडी दें, या तो आप डाई में दें, यूरिया में दें, और ये पेस्टिसाइड्स हैं, गन्ने के रेट में दें.
While the loan may bring partial relief, they worry about being pushed back into debt.
घर पे जो अपने जो है बाल को जो फीस है, लत्ता कपड़ा है, बात छूचक है, ये कहाँ से चलेगा जब खेती में हमारा गुजारा होता नहीं है. हमने लोन लेना पड़ता है, लोन हम पर दे नहीं जाता, ब्याज
फिर हम तो भी हमारा एक सिंचाई का 100 रुपए.
The reason? The income they receive from the sale of their produce barely matches their cost of input.
टोटल हमारी लागत 26,340 रुपए बैठ.
जैसे कि आपने
पूरा आपको मेहनत दिया है, और इसमें हमें आमदनी 1635 के रेट से भी हम अगर सरकारी रेट पे बेचें तो हमें टोटल बैठती है 27,025 रुपए.
ये 1635 जो है ये आपका
रेट
का
जो रेट
है,
MSP है.
ठीक है.
तो हमें 1 एकड़ पे 600 यानी 679 रुपया हमको बचते हैं. 1 एकड़ जो मुनाफा 1 एकड़ पे 6 महीने की जो आमदनी में हम कैसे गुजर करें, कैसे हम बैंक का लोन दें, कैसे हम अपने बच्चों की शादी करें, कैसे हम अपने बच्चों की शिक्षा दें.
They want the government's purchase price to increase.